As you mentioned before the break, tomorrow, former CIA Director David Petraeus, he's going to be testifying behind closed doors before a congressional committee. And while his affair may come up, it's not why Petraeus is going to be on the Hill. He's going to be there to talk about Benghazi. Petraeus, he was investigating what happened before, during, and after the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi that we all know took place on September 11th. And while questions remain about that attack to this day, we know Republicans, they were going nonstop on Benghazi. You can find it on Fox News as well all day, claiming the White House should have prevented the attack or were covering up details about the White House's response or lack thereof. And now you got UN Ambassador Susan Rice, who's in the middle of this. Her name has been floated as a possible replacement for outgoing Hillary Clinton at state, but top Republicans threatening to block any nomination she's given, and all because specifically of Benghazi and her comments immediately thereafter.
Susan Rice should have known better, and if she didn't know better, she's not qualified. She should have known better. I will do everything in my power to block her from being the United States Secretary of State. She has proven that she either doesn't understand or she is not willing to accept evidence on its face.
Okay, so what did Rice say that's got McCain and Lindsey Graham and so many others so hopping mad?
What our assessment is as of the present is in fact what it began spontaneously in Benghazi as a reaction to what had transpired some hours earlier in Cairo, where of course, as you know, there was a violent protest outside of our embassy sparked by this hateful video.
Okay, we now know it had nothing to do with the video. It was a terrorist attack. Those comments came 5 days after the attack on the Sunday morning show. Now, yesterday, the president, he jumped into this, taking, at least throughout the press conference, I say overall when you consider his demeanor, an unusually aggressive stance in supporting Ms. Rice.
If Senator McCain and Senator Graham and others want to go after somebody, they should go after me. And I'm happy to have that discussion with them. But for them to go after the UN ambassador, who had nothing to do with Benghazi and was simply making a presentation based on intelligence that she had received, and to besmirch her reputation is outrageous.
Now notice, the president called Rice's answers on Benghazi a presentation based on intelligence she had received, something Rice herself indicated. Now, if you play the tape past the point where many of her critics seem to hit stop, take a listen to what she said.
It looks like extremist elements, individuals joined in that effort with heavy weapons, and that it spun from there into something much, much more violent.
But you do not agree with him that this was something that had been plotted out several months ago?
We do not have information at present that leads us to conclude that this was premeditated.
Okay, so that again is the context we have this fight. But the Benghazi backlash against Rice, as well as the president, continues. Senator Lindsey Graham, good friend of this show, he's been ringing this bell, saying in statement after statement that the president's news conference yesterday missed the point. He went directly after President Obama, saying, quote, "Mr. President, don't think for 1 minute I don't hold you ultimately responsible for Benghazi. I think you failed as a commander-in-chief before, during, and after the attack. Given what I know now, I have no intention of promoting anyone who is up to their eyeballs in this Benghazi debacle." Okay. I saw another hearing today where there was back and forth, and he had Rohrabacher, your former colleague from the House from California, who said, he was artfully saying, he goes, let me rephrase that. The president is lying about this. And then Ackerman, congressman from New York here, in fact from Queens, said, let's be upfront. You guys are phonies, and you guys are the ones who wanted to cut funding in half here to protect the consulates, and now all of a sudden you want it both ways. So this thing is getting angry. It's getting ugly. The president's drawing a line in the sand here. What's your take on who, in effect, is this a mistake in the fog of war, or was this a cover-up?
Well, bottom line for me is it's not a hard question to answer what she knew and when she knew it. And once they know that, then they should form their judgment. Now, it does seem kind of obvious to all of us that it was a terrorist attack, and it struck us that way fairly quickly. So I would have probably jumped in and said, you know, this is a terrorist attack, and who knows? I'm saying, as an individual, I could have come to that conclusion. So the bottom line for me is find out what she knew when she knew it, and then hold her accountable.
Okay, here's what we don't know at this table that you might, though, Congressman. Reportedly, Petraeus is going to tell the folks behind closed doors that he believed immediately after that it was a terrorist attack. In fact, he believed he knew the folks attached to Al-Qaeda or as a subset that were probably responsible for it.
Believe or know are two different questions.
But he also will say, and again, this is second, third hand, that there was many as 20 other intelligence reports that pointed to the video, because there was a half a dozen other consulates that because of that video were having protests outside of them in the Middle East. Is there a volume of intelligence reports, or is it a consistent document that everyone works on?
Oh, no, there's a lot of different things that feed into that intelligence report. When we have a national director of intelligence, so it would be interesting where he comes down on this. But for me, I would ask if I were in Congress, it's been said that you told so-and-so, do you want the official version or really what happened?
Yeah.
And he's under oath, and he'll have to tell us exactly what he meant. One, did he say it? And two, what did he mean by it?
I'm already up against the break, but my question that I've never gotten a good answer is, what was the upside for her to lie on Sunday? 5 days after it, whether she said it was a terrorist attack or it was a video.
We need another 15 minutes for that one.
I don't, what would the upside to say it was a terrorist attack?
Because there's a view that some have, at least in my party, that they want to downplay the whole concept of terrorism. That we don't have a war against Islamic extremists. And I think we do.
Listen to what Lindsey Graham said. He said, based on what I know today, I think she's disqualified. That's precisely what she did 5 days after Benghazi. Based upon what I know today, we don't think it's a terrorist attack. They both could be wrong. Lying about it is different than being wrong about it.
So let's find out.
Well, absolutely. But don't call for somebody's permanent demotion until you know.
And here's where I think the risk is for the GOP on Benghazi. They were playing it for political advantage before the election, trying to make an impact on President Obama. It appears as though when that didn't work, they're shifting now and trying to play politics against Susan Rice and trying to basically just trying to put whatever stink on the White House they can as a result of this. And while it's a tragedy with the loss of you know, our ambassador and 3 other Americans, I don't think the American people look at it as being
unless Andrew,
someone's lying.
This thing turns out that they knew and they lied. If that happens, his second term, he loses a lot of equity he built up.
And the second thing is, could they have rescued these folks?
Yeah.
And did someone prevent that from happening? That's the other question.
I'll tell you the most disturbing thing to me, Don. The volume of attacks that apparently just on Benghazi had happened in the 6 months prior to September 11th. I had no idea, but apparently there was mortar attacks on this place.
For September 11th?
Yeah, at the same location in Benghazi. Now, how much of that filtered back to Langley, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. But they had documented records of the amount of times that a very unsafe situation was percolating there in Benghazi and even on this compound. So this thing's going to play out. We got to hit another break here. Now, when we come back, more uplifting stories like the fiscal cliff. Where is the middle ground here, and will lawmakers get there in time? I'm going to ask both these guys who they think has leverage and how they play the negotiations. We'll be right back after this.